What's up, everybody? How's it going? Anthony Cosenza here with the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast and from CincyJungle.com, back to talk about a Bengals win. My apologies for those expecting a post-game show yesterday evening. It just kind of got a little late. Didn't know how many people were going to be up for the live recording. Obviously, with the holidays around, had some other stuff to tend to as well, but wanted to kind of do what we did last week, where we jammed in the Happenin headlines along with kind of some post-game thoughts, a recap of the game. Not the prettiest affairs by the Cincinnati Bengals, but they get the job done on the road, grab a much-needed win, and temporarily hang on to the AFC North lead with a 15-10 win over the Denver Broncos. There were some moments in that game that were absolutely bonkers. There were moments in that game that were incredibly frustrating to watch. There were moments in that game that made you wonder at times how good either one of these teams really are. And there are times that, really just kind of also exemplified December football, maybe by teams that are actually pretty good and sporting some good defenses. We'll talk about all kinds of different things, especially as we go over the tail of the tape, as we usually do in the post-game wrap. And then we're going to transition into all kinds of different headlines with the Cincinnati Bengals within the AFC North and, of course, around the NFL. Got a lot to get to. We're going to try and jam it all in here. Again, I'm Anthony Cosenza. Happy to have all of you with us, whether you're tuning in live through Cincy Jungle's Facebook page, our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to that right down here. There's a little icon down there. You can click that to be notified when we go live and subscribe to the channel. We're almost at a milestone subscriber on the YouTube channel number, so be sure to do that. We've got a lot of cool things coming. We do fantasy football. We do our deep dive show, John Sheeran and myself, listener questions. We do this post-game show, and we do Happenin headlines. Usually we split those up, but with the games being later the past couple of weeks, it just kind of made a little more sense to maybe squeeze them together on a Monday instead of splitting them up. And then, of course, we've got all kinds of different stuff coming up for the offseason. But we're not talking about the offseason yet because the Bengals are right in the thick of the playoff race. And, of course, I didn't mention this, but if you like the audio versions of this show and the others on the Cincy Jungle podcast channel, you got to subscribe to your favorite audio streamer where you can get this show, Orange is the New Black, from Ace and Zim, as well as Coach Speak and Chalk Talk from Matt Minnick. These guys do all kinds of great work, so go check out their shows as well. Let's get to some of the stuff, and there is a major talking point. I am seeing it on Twitter, lines in the sand being drawn, centering around some of the approaches or lack thereof in this game with Zach Taylor and the offense. We will definitely talk about that. I'm already seeing a lot of comments in the live chats here about play calling and all kinds of different things. So at any rate, here's the game itself here. We're going to go to ESPN. I like this box score layout. I usually like to do that. I noticed that my boy Ace, in his in-game streams that he does, he uses ESPN's, I think, kind of play-by-play deal. So I'm not the only one who prefers the ESPN model here, I guess. Whatever. Here we are at the individual stats here. Joe Burrow, you look at it and you go, okay, 157 yards, but efficient day, 15 of 22. So, again, was not asked to throw the football a ton. The Bengals really wanted to try and establish the run. They did and they didn't. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But Burrow, not his best day, but a turnover-free day, and still hovering around 70% completion rate. And, of course, the sacks were a little bit less this week, 3 as opposed to 5. I mean, it's kind of the small victories there. And 103.8 rating. 103.8 rating for Joe Burrow on a day wherein he only threw one for 157. Had the big touchdown to Boyd and goes there. You look at the other side, Bridgewater, 12 of 22, a pedestrian day here. Pretty scary moment there. He left the game with an injury. We'll talk more about that later too. He appears to have left the hospital, and he appears to be okay. Underwent some massive concussion protocol, carted off the field on a stretcher and all kinds of stuff. So That was a big yikes, but 98 yards passing on 12 completions for him, just over 50% completion rate, a 4.5 yard per completion rate for Teddy, and a 66.1 rating. Drew Lock came in and started winging the ball around the field a little bit. Only 50% completion rate, 6 of 12, 88 yards, a 7.3 yards per completion rate for him. Had the one touchdown to Tim Patrick, where he just basically out-muscled Trey Waynes on the play. At first blush, that looked like offensive pass interference, and really it just kind of was not. He just kind of boxed him out a little bit and positioned himself correctly, made the right play. So that was kind of Drew Lock's day. And then, of course, the Bengals had 3 sacks of their own between those two quarterbacks, and Lock had the costly and weird play, the fumble by Khalid Kareem on Sunday. So that's the tale of the quarterbacks here. Here's where the Bengals were trying to impose their will. And oddly enough, their star running back was the one who did not have the big day. 17 carries, 58 yards, a pedestrian 3.4 yard per carry average for Joe Mixon, but gutted out a tough performance. He had an ankle injury. He also had some kind of weird padding, or not quite a brace, but something on his knee. So I don't know if there's a multitude of injury, was hobbling late. Samaje Perine did get 4 carries for 30 yards, had a great 22-yard scamper. And then Joe Burrow, I think at least 3 of his 5 carries went for first downs, big first downs. When the plays weren't there, guys were covered, things were breaking down, and Burrow was able to use his legs and make a couple of first down conversions there. So 5 carries, 25 yards for him. Nothing crazy. I mean, the long run for him was 8 yards, but that was kind of the tail there. Little concerning on the rushing front for Denver against the Cincinnati defense. Now, the Bengals held the Broncos to 159 yards through the air between Bridgewater and Locke, and that's accounting for the yardage lost, the 27 yards lost on sacks between the two guys. But if you notice, this was something that concerned me. When Denver was running the ball on early downs, they were getting 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards on that opening down often. And so that was a little concerning. And it was actually a pretty solid game plan by Denver to get them close to the sticks in the later downs. And it was kind of working for them a little bit. Gordon and Javonte Williams were getting those. Javonte Williams was particularly impressive. But they were getting that first, 4 yards, 5 yards on that opening down. Now, it didn't always work out for them on second down when they tried to run again, or maybe third down, but they were putting themselves in good position after first down when they tried to run the ball, did Denver, I thought, more often than not. And then you saw a couple of runs, 3 for 10 from Teddy, and obviously the final run is the one where he got a first down, but he unfortunately was injured as well. Just a freak play, dove up in the air, kind of got hit a little bit by a couple Bengals defenders, and, as he came down, kind of landed on his arm and head, and then exited the game, but does seem to be okay at this point, based on reports. We'll talk more about that. And then you go down here, Tyler Boyd with the touchdown. Now, I have to beat my chest a little bit here, because after Mixon, you see Joe Mixon's long run, that 12-yarder. After Mixon hit that 12-yarder it was a first down, I said to myself, and I said out loud to the people I was watching the game with, I said, watch, because that play right there sets up play action beautifully. The Bengals were running on early downs, not to great success, but they were running and committing to running the football on early downs and drives, on first downs and drives. And lo and behold, right after Mixon pops that 12-yarder at the end of the third quarter / fourth quarter-ish, and we'll look at the drive summary in a little bit. But right then I said, watch, this is a great time for play action. And lo and behold, the very next play is a play action, and it goes to Tyler Boyd. Boyd makes a nifty move in the open field. He was wide open, but then makes a nifty move in the open field on a defender and takes it all the way to the house for his 56-yarder. Just really, when you look at the play calling, and I know there's some complaints about that. I'm seeing the live chats and stuff, and I know we've got a lot to talk about in terms of what the Bengals did on their final drives of this game. But when you look at that setup, it worked masterfully, in my opinion, because the Bengals pounded the football on the ground on early downs and on first down often. They finally got a good chunk yardage. And so what does that tell a defense? They're going to say, hey, they're going to go right back to that. They just got a nice gain on first down. They're going to try it again with Mixon. They're going to go right back to it. And they set up the play action. It's kind of akin to, if you go back to week 1 in overtime, that 4th and inches, 4th and 1, everybody and their mother thought that they were going to be running the football in that play. And instead they switched the play and do a play action to Uzomah to set up the game-winning field goal. So I just knew at that point that was going to set up a very good play action situation for the Bengals, even though the run game had not been that successful with Mixon on early downs. But the Bengals still got 113 yards and a 4.3 yard per carry average on the ground yesterday. The Denver running backs and quarterbacks accounted for 133 yards, 3.9 yards per carry, but did get quite a bit of yardage on the ground. And like I said, some of that, or a good chunk of that rather, seemed to be on the early downs and on first downs. Tyler Boyd, 5 catches, 96 yards, a touchdown. Really quiet day from the other wide receivers. T. Higgins coming off of 3 straight 100-yard games, 2 catches, 23 yards. Did have a nice 17-yarder early in the game. Jamar Chase, 1 catch, 3 yards. Wow. Boyd, his 5 catches on 6 targets. Aside from the touchdown, he had a gigantic one right before the half to set up the record-setting field goal by Evan McPherson. Just a couple of really, really nice plays by Tyler Boyd, and he was the hero on this one. C.J. Uzomah, 3 catches, 18 yards. P. Ryan, a couple of catches. I mean, just not much there other than Tyler Boyd. You look at Denver, here's another problem, especially when you see Mark Andrews coming next week, when you face Travis Kelce the following week, and you've got some decent tight ends in Cleveland. 2 leading receivers, Albert O and Noah Fant, 2 tight ends. 3 catches for Albert O, 3 catches for 58 yards. Noah Fant, 5 catches, 57 yards. The Bengals still have trouble guarding talented and athletic tight ends, as do much of the league. But still, this just seems to be it seems to particularly be a Bengals problem. So they need to figure that out. They did an outstanding job on the running backs and talented wideouts for Denver. Jerry Jeudy, goose eggs. Didn't help my fantasy team at all, but whatever. Goose eggs for Jerry Jeudy. That's a big win for the Bengals. Tim Patrick had a decent day, had the big touchdown, the 25-yarder, but other than that, 3 catches, 42 yards. So it was really the tight ends that were doing the damage there for Denver. That's kind of the story there. Khalid Kareem had the only turnover of the game by either team, and it ended up being a biggie because the Bengals were up 15-10 at that point. Denver was deep into scoring territory, and he just snatched that ball right out of Drew Lock's hand on a run there and took it. Now, it almost ended up being a disaster where Denver got the ball back, but this is where I initially felt like, hey, this is maybe a gift call that they called Kareem down. But if you go back and look, and for copyright purposes, I don't have the video for you, unfortunately, because YouTube and the NFL don't want me showing that. But at any rate, if you go back and look at the play after Kareem rips the ball out, Locke kind of grabs him a little bit, but then there's an additional, the initial camera angle didn't show it. When they showed a reverse angle, there's an additional hand of Drew Lock that was blocked from the initial camera angle that touches Kareem. And then he kind of falls to the ground there. So there was a second late touch by Drew Lock and it happened right before Khalid Kareem fell down the first time, and then he got back up. It was close. But it was a call that ended up going the Bengals' way. Bengals didn't score on that turnover, but they at least made that a 3 to 7 point swing based on what Denver was going to do on that drive. And of course, seeing as how the game ended and how Denver was forced to go for the touchdown for the win instead of a field goal, big deal. And obviously your approach changes there. Jermaine Pratt, what a game by Jermaine Pratt. Holy moly, 15 total tackles, 9 of them solo, a half sack, a quarterback hit. Guy is just playing out of his mind and is doing so without Logan Wilson, without Akeem Davis-Gaither, without Joe Bacci left the game as well yesterday. I mean, he's kind of doing it on his own in that linebacker group, with the exception of, look at this one down here, a couple of names down, Marcus Bailey. Nice game by Marcus Bailey, friend of the show. Came on the program after he was drafted. Go check out that interview. But my Lord, 5 tackles, a half sack for him that he split with Pratt, a pass defended. Good game by him coming in relief duty. He seemed to be very aware of what was going on and played well. Good for Marcus Bailey filling in at linebacker there. That's what you want. Next guy up, Von Bell, 6 total tackles. Nothing of the outstanding variety from Von Bell. He also briefly left the game. I think he went out on a 3rd down late in the game. Joe Bocci, 6 tackles. DJ Reader playing outstanding football again as the nose tackle. 5 total tackles, 1 of them for loss. Great game by him. Jesse Bates, 5 tackles. BJ Hill did have the bonehead offsides penalty late that almost could have really hurt the Bengals there, but had 5 total tackles. Mike Hilton, 4 total tackles. You'll see here, he was one of the better PFF scores of the day. Larry Ogunjobi, oh my goodness, 4 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, just playing really, really well. Trey Hendrickson extends that sack streak with a half sack, 3 total tackles, 2 quarterback hits. He was pressuring their quarterbacks often. He also, I think, netted 2 holding penalties in this game. Dude was everywhere. He was awesome. Trey Waynes, rough day for him. 2 total tackles, missed a big tackle for loss opportunity late in the game, and of course was in coverage on the Patrick touchdown there. First game back. I know where patience is wearing thin with Waynes, but first game back and extended since like week 4. Give him a little time. I know we've given him a lot of time, but give him a little time to readjust, and hopefully he'll come back in and play much more solid football there. Khalid Kareem had an outstanding day on limited, and he left the game early too. Had an outstanding day in limited snaps. Tackle for loss, had a pressure on the quarterback. So he had a tackle for loss on a run, pressure on the quarterback, and then he had the quarterback hit wherein he snagged the ball away from Drew Lock. So good day from Khalid Kareem. Josh Tupou, another one of those defensive tackles that got the game ball from Zach Taylor there. The group of defensive linemen got the game ball. Eli Apple played quietly well. 2 passes defended, a tackle for loss, only 1 tackle, but he was in coverage quite often on Jerry Jeudy, and he let you know about it on Twitter. If you follow him on Twitter, he let people know about it. Rightfully so. Guy's playing the best football, arguably, of his pro career here. So you gotta like that. Sam Hubbard, quiet day, just 1 tackle. But the Bengals put it together. They did a lot of stuff. The interior of the defensive line was key, and of course Hendrickson on the edge, Tyler Boyd coming up big. That's kind of what was the tail of the tape there. Now, if we go to play-by-play, and if we look at the drive summary here, this is where a lot of folks are having some gripes, I think. Not only the sluggish start, and John and I talked about this on Listener Questions Live last Friday. It could be a number of different things. And I think they did note something on the telecast here this week here. So there's a couple of different things. Number one, you look at the fact that, the Bengals may be playing a little bit of offensive chess, so to speak, where they're kind of feeling out what the defense is doing and all sorts of things. And that has, and later on they dictate their game plan later to be able to see when they want to strike. And I think if you look at the run plays on first down and that play action pass to Tyler Boyd late in the game and how that was set up, I think that kind of plays to that a little bit. But I also think if you listen to the telecast, Zach Taylor and the rest on the offensive side of the ball talked about how, the last couple of weeks they've been behind. And so they've had to scrap the game plan, make a new game plan, do things differently than they normally would have done because they were down on the scoreboard. But you look at here and they have
faked the handoff and ran.
There's, I think that's Dan Horde there talking. You look here. You have punt, field goal, punt, field goal, punt, field goal. Yikes. And the 2 field goals that they had, one of which, and by the way, I was remiss not talking about special teams plays, and I'll get back and talk about Evan McPherson in just a second because we've got a specific headline for him too. But it's also worth noting that the 2 field goals that the Bengals did get in the first half were huge, one of which is a team record, a 58-yarder. So they weren't moving the ball even on scoring drives. Concerning. The other issue, when you go into the end of the game, the Bengals have the ball here with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left. And so you look
pocket, scrambling left. Teddy will take off and run.
You look at that, and as we look at this, 1st and 10 with 3:40 left. Mixon gets 4 yards. Joe Burrow, this was a play. I think the 2nd and 6 was the play where he kind of ran a little bit, sacked for 4 yards. He kind of ran a little bit and then just kind of gave himself up because nothing was open. Really weird play on that one. Then 3rd and 10 after the loss on the sack. Nice play to Boyd for 15 yards. A big play to extend the drive and chew more clock. Then you've got a 1st down. Mixon. They're just letting Denver burn their timeouts here. Pirine for a yard. Then you've got the 2-minute warning. Bengals called a timeout after the 2-minute warning just to get things set. 3rd and 8. Again, Pirine for 3 yards, and then you punt the ball. Here's the thing. I understand why people are upset about this approach with how things played out last week, and you felt that Zach Taylor maybe took the football out of the hands of Joe Burrow when he was hot and the offense was clicking and the Bengals had an opportunity to go for the throat against the 49ers. I understand that. And this looks, from a bird's eye view, this looks pretty similar. And I still am not 100% sold necessarily on what I'm about to say, but there are some things on the flip side here that are different than the 49ers situation. The Bengals offense was clearly not in a rhythm most of the day, running the football or passing the football. And if you looked at the stats, that tells you that. They needed Denver to burn their timeouts because Denver needed a touchdown, not a field goal. The Bengals defense was doing a lot in terms of stopping Denver, getting after the quarterback and pressuring the quarterbacks, sacking them. And, later on, you're facing a backup quarterback. I know Drew Lock would be considered one of the best backup quarterback options you could have in the NFL, but you're facing a backup quarterback. You want them to burn your timeouts. Your defense is playing a lot better. And, you kind of have some faith there in what your defense is doing, and your offense was not clicking. So I think there's a myriad of factors at play here that kind of get you into the mindset of Zach Taylor and the Bengals. And then when they punt it, by the way, Kevin Huber punts it 51 yards to the Denver 25. And of course they get the penalty on that. And so now they're starting at their own 15. Now Zach Taylor isn't psychic. He didn't know there was going to be an extra 10-yard holding penalty there, but it's also not, it's not like you're giving them immediately great field position and punting the ball away. You're feeling pretty good about how your punter had been playing as well that day and pinning them deep. So all of these come into play, and I think that's where the mindset is. Now, do I necessarily 100% like that approach personally? Not really. I really question that one play. I know you wanted it to be certain that there would be an open pass, an open receiver for Joe Burrow there on the one where he kind of slid and gave himself up. And with that as well, you don't want him throwing the ball away either, because that stops the clock and saves Denver a timeout. So there's a lot of different things to sort through here. I don't think it was the perfect way to handle the situation here, but I think when you look at how the game was playing out, I think you can see what Zach Taylor was potentially thinking in going real conservative at the end yet again, instead of relying on Joe Burrow. And Joe Burrow made a few very nice plays, The offensive line was not holding up all that great throughout the day. So that's another issue. If you want him dropping back and winging things around the field, I mean, that's another issue you got to think about. So here, that's kind of all the myriad of situations that go into this sort of ending to the game. And then, of course, at the end, I wanted to talk about this. The Bengals special teamers played really well. McPherson, in particular, had a great day. Hey, Trent Taylor did his thing on punt returns and kick returns, had a long of 12, 3 returns, 12 yards, had a long of 12, hung on to the ball, had a 23-yard return. So, kudos to him and coming to the rescue after what happened last week. And then you've got McPherson, a perfect day, 3 of 3 on field goals. Did not attempt an extra point. The Bengals went for 2 there, but great day by Evan McPherson, accounting for 9 huge points. And that one at the end of halftime, wherein Denver misses a field goal. They give Cincinnati good field position. Burrow throws the ball to Boyd. That nice one across the middle sets up the long field goal, 6-point swing to end the half there. So that is what that was a big point in the game. Big point in the game, the 6-point swing at the end of the game. So at any rate, that's a little bit of the tale of the tape as it goes with the game, what happened in it, and how the Cincinnati Bengals got to be on top. I don't know. I'm looking through the some of the live chat comments here. I don't know. There's still seemingly a dividing line in the sand in terms of how that game was handled at the end of the game there. I'm gonna bring up one other thing here that tells you a little bit as to, number one, why Jamar Chase wasn't a bigger factor in this game, but also plays into why the Bengals maybe were conservative at the end here. And this is a quote, I believe it's relayed, from our buddy Charlie Goldsmith, who was on our program last week, our good luck charm there, Charlie. Here's a tweet from him. Jamar Chase on the Broncos defense. This was as of just before we took the air today. That quote, that was one of the best zone teams we played all year. They had great communication. They were in quarters or 3 buzz clouding one side, usually his side. The Bengals did try and move Chase in the slot every once in a while, but he was bracketed. Quote, it was a little bit of everything. They played a man maybe twice. So, an interesting and an effective pass defense strategy used by the Broncos that frustrated the Bengals all day and frustrated Chase all day. So that plays into also the mindset of Zach Taylor and the approach at the end of the game, and why the Bengals went conservative and why they felt that maybe the passing game, which was not clicking, did not. It was not going to warrant them throwing the ball down the field again. Burrow had taken a few sacks and other things. So, again, I don't say I 100% back the approach necessarily, but I can understand it when you lay out the laundry list of situations and issues that were happening in the game that made Zach kind of say, hey, this is the better of 2 difficult decisions, I guess. Maybe that was just the mindset, but and then, I see this is, and by the way, if you are so inclined, I believe we do have super chats on YouTube. So, go ahead and check that out if you would. But Brandon Hoodayer 85, we were not giving the ball back to Rodgers or Brady at the end. Sorry, Locke doesn't scare me with a minute left and no timeouts. Yes. And I think that that's also part of it that goes into it, wherein, if we're talking Mahomes or Brady or whatever, where it's a Rodgers, where, that's going to be an issue, then we're probably maybe talking about a little bit of a different strategy there. Maybe we can go back and debate based on what happened at the end of that Green Bay game, and obviously what will happen against the Chiefs here. We'll see. Anyway, let's keep rolling here. This is a quote, and we're going to transition into Happenin headlines here, by the way, as we get as we get into or get out of the post-game wrap. Zach Taylor said this, I believe it was in the post-game talk. Zach Taylor believes the Bengals defense, quote, sent the league a message following the win in Denver. And this is, of course, on cincyjungle.com. I will pin the link in the live chats here so you can have that. But here is Zach Taylor believes the Bengals defense, quote, sent the league a message. And so when and again, this kind of backs a little bit of why he went the way he did with the strategy at the end of the game. Quote, that's our team. Everyone steps up. The defense sent the league a message today. And obviously he gave game balls to Khalid Kareem individually, the interior defensive line group as a group there. So, and then of course McPherson. So defense and special teams were the big winners in this one and the big reasons why the Bengals won this one. So, and that defense is going to need to continue to play well as the Ravens on offense are doing some surprising things under Tyler Huntley. He's playing well. I think he had 4 total touchdowns, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground yesterday against the Packers. So he is now a legitimate weapon in that offense. We don't know the status of Lamar Jackson, but Huntley's running that offense to perfection and played well, against the Browns. And I think that Lamar maybe missed a game earlier this year, and I think it was maybe the Bears. He came in and played, and they won that game. So, Huntley's becoming a little bit of a threat and a little bit of a scary player to defend if you are an opposing defense. Here is the snap counts, and probably the most interesting look here is where Trey Waynes lands on this one. Because first game back, but pressed into action. That's the other thing. I think also Waynes maybe not in quote unquote game shape. Don't want to make excuses for him. But the Bengals were without a couple of corners, including Awuzie. And so that really put Waynes into a high-profile role. Obviously, they want him to be in that high-profile role with the contract he signed, but with him being out for weeks and weeks, you kind of felt they would maybe ease him in a little bit, but they weren't able to really do that. Hilton playing 77% of the snaps. Trey Flowers getting in there after some struggles from Waynes, 8 snaps, 11 on defense. Wayne still played 92% of the snaps. He was out there a lot. Had 2 big miscues, one against the run and one against the pass. But, 10 points is 10 points, right? Giving up. Eli Apple playing 100% of the snaps. Hargraves, as I mentioned, was the guy that was out. Hendrickson playing 77% of the snaps, yet is just still remaining effective. Cam Sample in there for 20% of the snaps. Hubbard in there for 91%. And then you look at the defensive line here. They just, Khalid Kareem, 13 snaps. DJ Reader, 44 snaps. Ogunjobi, 50 snaps. Tupou, 22 snaps. BJ Hill, 44 snaps. So they're mixing and matching those guys, and they are playing well. Joe Bocci, 37% of the snaps and left the game with a knee injury. Marcus Bailey, 45% of the snaps with the Bocci injury. So he was filling in there. Jackson Carman comes in and did some nice things yesterday, at least per PFF, 62% of the snaps there at guard. Quentin Spain, 100%. Carman came in for Adeniji, 38% of the snaps. Jonah Williams playing 100%. Fred Johnson, 100%. He was not tasked necessarily with Bradley Chubb, so his job was a little bit easier than that of Jonah Williams, but Fred Johnson held his own a bit there. Joe Mixon, 58% of the snaps. P. Ryan, 30%. Evans, 11%. Wondering if Evans is going to get more snaps now that Mixon appears to be dinged up. Ricardo Allen getting 24% of the snaps. Von Bell, 93%. Jesse Bates, 100%. So they were mixing in Ricardo Allen a little bit more on this one. CJ Uzomah, 79%. Drew Sample, by the way, speaking of Chubb and Drew Sample, oh my goodness, that missed call or non-call at the beginning of the game. Drew Sample gets a catch, gets tackled. The guy takes about the guy, meaning Bradley Chubb, takes about 3 or 4 steps and launches himself at Sample. Ref is right there. Not only do they swallow the flag, but the flag that was thrown wasn't even for that play. They thought he might have been horse collar tackled, and he was not. I don't know. There was some really, really questionable officiating in this game. Yeah, and I think we would be complaining about that quite a bit more had the result been different. Tyler Boyd, 87% of the snaps. Jamar Chase, 96%. T. Higgins, 87%. Stanley Morgan in there a little bit. So that is the snap counts for the Cincinnati Bengals in this one. I mentioned some PFF scores. Check this one out. The top 5 performers of the day by PFF Cincinnati Bengals at PFF_Bengals, highest graded Bengals in week 15 with a minimum of 25 snaps. Mike Hilton had a couple of nice plays there. Did Mike Hilton, 83.5, your highest graded player of the day. Fred Johnson, it says offensive guard. They corrected it to tackle in a later tweet. Fred Johnson, number two graded Bengal by PFF standards with an 82.8 overall score. Joe Burrow, 78.8. DJ Reader continuously landing in that top 5, 74.6, and Tyler Boyd is 74.1 on that one. The one miscue by Boyd was that, it was a tough ball. We've just kind of been spoiled by 83, but the little bit of a drop or jostling away of the 2-point conversion. But those are your top 5 PFF scores for the Cincinnati Bengals against the Denver Broncos. Mention this one, so we don't need to belabor the point here, but we've got a couple of record holders and or great streaks by Cincinnati Bengals players. Trey Hendrickson gets a sack in 10 straight games. So there's the link in the live chats for you there. Do you remember when people were all aflame about, oh, this guy was just a waste of money. He's not going to be what Carl Lawson was. And he's just, he has cleanup sacks and nothing more. This guy is dominating. And if you go look at a great play, if you follow Matt Minnick on Twitter, he has a play where he highlights on film where Hendrickson chases down a runner laterally and makes a tackle for loss. Just a great hustle play. He had 13 and a half sacks last season. He entered with 12 and a half in this one. Now he's got 13, riding a 9-game sack streak. And then, of course, if he gets a sack next week against the Baltimore Ravens, as you can see here by Jay Morrison of The Athletic, it's an NFL record. So when you're talking about NFL record and an edge defender and a guy in his first year of a major free agency contract for the Cincinnati Bengals, that is huge, because that also, the Bengals have been free agency averse in terms of outside players. And when they have, I know they got burned a little bit with the Waynes deal, but when you see Mike Hilton playing well, when you see Chidobe Awuzie playing well, when you see Trey Hendrickson playing well, Larry Ogunjobi, BJ Hill, these guys, that as a franchise sends you a message that we're going to keep being busy. We're going to keep adding pieces on the outside, draft and develop. Yes, but keep adding pieces on the outside. So good stuff there. And then, of course, we've got, I don't think he likes Money Mac or Kick Fearson. I don't know what he likes, but regardless, the dude is awesome. And the Bengals would not have won the game yesterday if not for his heroics. The 58-yarder to end the half, as I mentioned, that was a big 6-point swing. So here's the link here from CincyJungle.com. Making Bengals history did Evan McPherson. And what history is that? It's a franchise record, the 58-yarder. And by the way, John Breach talking about it from CBS Sports. His dad is obviously one of the best kickers in Bengals history, Jim Breach. So he's liking that about the longest field goal in history. And then he's got 10 field goals of 50 or more yards this year, does McPherson, 10. And I believe he is one away as well from the NFL rookie record of 50-plus yard kicks. I'd have to double check that, but huge season from the rookie kicker. There have been a couple of misses, and I know a couple of them came in one game in the Green Bay game, but he has played very, very well and been a huge addition to the special teams. And you know what? Kudos to Darren Simmons, because Darren Simmons' unit had probably the worst possible day, including a miss by McPherson last week that you could think of. And they came back, they remedied it, and 1 week later, when they needed outstanding special teams play in a tough game, they got it. And that's why Darren Simmons is who he is and is as respected as he is, despite the issues last week. So kudos to him and to his unit for making plays here. All right. So let's keep it rolling. We've got just a bit more of Bengals news, and we're going to get to AFC North, etc. Just kind of a quick, cool tidbit here. Joe Burrow is your top PFF quarterback as it currently stands through 14 games played. So he is the highest graded quarterback in 2021 is Joe Burrow. Cool graphic there. QB1. And that obviously, I think he was jostling a bit up there with Tom Brady, etc. Tom Brady had a rough game last night, as you probably not as tough as the Microsoft Surface tablets had that he was holding, but he had a tough game, and maybe that affected some things. But Burrow just keeps playing efficient football, and again, did not turn the ball over, which was huge. So that is just some fun news. If you are a PFF data geek, that will definitely make you pretty happy. Now we'll get to some injury stuff and different updates coming up here. Before we do, I want to tell everybody we've got a lot of live listeners. You guys must be taking it easy for the work week going into the holiday. I love it. Also, we get a lot of interest after post-game wrap-ups and stuff too. So good to see all these live listeners. It's awesome. And I want to tell all of you about our partnership with Symbol. And Symbol, of course, if for some reason you don't know, if you've been watching this show or listening to this show and for some reason do not know about Symbol, you got to check it out. SIMBULL.com/OBI is the website address. And you go there, you have some fun because you can invest in teams, whether it's the Cincinnati Bengals or a different team, like they are stocks, shares of stocks, etc. You can go and do that. Now, whether it's short-term play, long-term play, or if it's not even the Bengals, if it's not even the sport of football, you can invest in another team that you see either short or long-term potential and make some money on their platform. Now, what you got to do, though, is you got to go over there and you got to use the promo code OBI, because for the first 3 months that you tinker around with their platform, they will cover up to $500 of your money. Meaning, if you open an account, deposit money in it, and start doing some things, making some investments, either you're losing money or you're just not satisfied with the product or what have you, they will cover up to $500 of your money back in the first 90 days when you use the promo code OBI. That is how confident they are that you will enjoy their product, that you will be successful in making money and investing in teams like their stocks with Symbol. Symbol.com/OBI. Use the promo code OBI and take advantage of that nice incentive that they have for our listeners there. Good stuff. And a lot of people, when we first partnered with them, a lot of people invested in the Bengals, and they are looking like some savvy investors at this point in time. So that is something you got to go check out. Go check out Symbol for sure. All right. Now, the Bengals, unfortunately, in the past few weeks have been hit a little harder than they have been in the earlier part of the season with injury. Yesterday, we saw Joe Mixon leaving the Broncos game with an injury, really tried to tough it out, left once, came back, ankle injury. I mentioned there was something that looked like it was going on with the knee. I don't know if that is the case. He left the game with an ankle injury, and Zach Taylor, as of late yesterday, did not give an update on the severity of Mixon's injury. It sounds like they will probably let it rest this week. He's not a guy that, he takes a lot of contact. He has missed some time in the past, but when it's minor stuff, he tends to come back pretty quickly, does Mixon, really had to fight for some tough yards yesterday, but had his ankle. I don't know exactly how it happened, but if you noticed, the footing on that field was pretty rough. A lot of guys were slipping. Mixon in particular was slipping on his cut. So I don't know if he rolled it and it just kind of kept rolling on him. He slipped a couple of times. I saw some receivers do it. So, he's got an ankle issue. Not sure about the severity of it. And Zach Taylor didn't give an update of it as of late yesterday. I'm seeing and hearing some things. I didn't get to do. I'm on the air right now, so I haven't been able to see it, but I don't think it's anything overly serious. It's more of a monitor day-to-day thing from what I understand, but we'll see more, and we'll give you an update further on cincyjungle.com as more news develops there. Obviously, they're going to let things play out during the week and see how it responds at practice and all kinds of different stuff. So something to note, something to monitor. Now, let's keep going. And, another guy that unfortunately had an injury was after the wacky play. The fortunate part was that the other portion of this wacky play where he fumbled the ball again, wherein he got hurt, that did not end up being a turnover, but Khalid Kareem, again, I think I said 12 snaps, but made the most of them. 3 huge plays in those 12 snaps. Got the turnover, and unfortunately, he's been a guy that's had to battle injuries. Do you remember the preseason game that I think it was against the Dolphins? Same deal. Shot out like with a great start to that, and then had to leave early with an injury. But I think he had a pressure and a sack to start that game. And now he's hurt again here. But unfortunately, we're not. I think it was maybe hit the head, neck area, maybe concussion type of stuff. So that's something to watch there, but he is going to be monitored, and hopefully he's a guy that you can still get rotational snaps from going forward, because like I said, he kind of makes the most of the snaps, it seems, when he's out there. He's just been battling injuries and down on the depth chart a little bit. So, but he is going to be someone they'll be monitoring as well throughout the week. And then of course, we've got the big game coming up against the Baltimore Ravens, and by we I mean the collective we, not necessarily me on the field playing. Let's go to this one on Cincy Jungle again. The Bengals odds have been released for week 16, and this one this is a hard one to gauge because Baltimore is so beaten up. Cincinnati stomped them in Baltimore earlier in the season. And then you've got the other facet of the Bengals themselves have been up and down. And even though they got back to their winning ways, a 15-10 win against the Broncos doesn't necessarily inspire. I mean, it inspires confidence, and we're stoked about it and where the Bengals are right now, but it doesn't inspire, the fact that the Bengals are going to, host the Ravens and have another big blowout here. But this is, let's see here, the early odds. I think the Bengals are about 2.5 point favorites right now. The line has already dropped to 2.5 as of this posting. So 2.5 points. The Bengals are favored over the Jaguars. We don't know what's going on with Lamar Jackson, bone bruise in his ankle, but we don't know his status. Tyler Huntley is a guy that has played well in time that he's been out there, but is that just, a product of the system they run, and or is he just, they don't have a lot of film on him? What's the deal there? So, and now there's a possibility Logan Wilson may be coming back either this week or the next couple of weeks here to end the season. We'll see what happens there. He's had a couple nice moments against Baltimore, something to monitor, but the Bengals are early favorites right now against the Ravens. So talking more about the Ravens, and this is from Charlie Goldsmith, and then we'll transition into AFC North news here. Again, a nice tidbit from Charlie on Twitter. Go follow him if for some reason you do not. you need to do that. But Charlie Goldsmith, Jamar Chase on the short-handed Ravens, quote, expect the unexpected on this game plan, play the right rules, and get open. If you remember, Jamar Chase had a breakout game against the Baltimore Ravens, with the highlight being his little whirlpool move where he twisted around a couple of defenders and took it to the house, and the Bengals never really looked back after that play. Now, the Ravens are still, of course, without Marcus Peters. They are now without Marlon Humphrey. They have been battered in the secondary, so they've got a lot of issues to work out there. The Bengals will look to exploit that, I am sure. And depending on what happens with Joe Mixon, the Bengals are going to need to probably do a little bit of a different game plan this week. We'll see. They've been altering it from week to week, as we know. But that is a quote from Jamar Chase via Charlie Goldsmith of the Inquirer. Now, let's transition to the Baltimore Ravens, and we've got a few bits of AFC North and NFL news. And then I think we are coming up against kickoff for the Browns and Raiders, which is a big game that we will all be having our eyes on as the AFC North race continues to tighten. This is from Ryan Mink of BaltimoreRavens.com. The Ravens' playoff chances after the loss to the Packers. So if you look here, according to Steve Kornacki on Sunday Night Football on NBC, I think this graphic was also on the telecast there. The Ravens have a 50% chance of making the playoffs and a 26% chance of winning the AFC North. And that is with them sitting as the 8th seed currently, Cincinnati as the 4 seed right now, as we all know. And then, things can change with what's going on with Cleveland there. Cincinnati has the upper hand because of the earlier win. If the Bengals beat Baltimore this next week, that's going to go a long way. That's going to go a long way, as will the win against Cleveland, because they have not beaten Cleveland this year and have had one win against Cleveland in the Zach Taylor era. So Baker Mayfield has really, really played his best football against the Bengals there. But right now, Ravens are 50% chance of making the playoffs and 26% chance of winning the AFC North, according to Steve Kornacki and Ryan Mink of BaltimoreRavens.com. So they're still in it. They still got a pulse. They have, and you know what? I know there's kind of a little bit of jawing back and forth between Bengals fans and Ravens fans based on what happened in the earlier game where the Bengals won. But you have to credit John Harbaugh, and the Ravens, and weathering the storm and being in the playoff race with all of these injuries. And you go look at their IR list. It's a lot of, Dobbins and Gus, it's just Gus Edwards and running backs, and cornerbacks and secondary players. Lamar Jackson's missed a couple of games. The list just goes on and on and on, and somehow they are still 8-6 in the thick of the playoff race. And it just is a testament to how they run their team. Harbaugh, I know we can question a lot of his decisions, particularly his go for 2 decision yesterday and the one a couple weeks ago, but he for the large part gets them ready to play, gets them going. So that is 50, that is a little bit on the Baltimore Ravens playoff chances. And then, of course, just this is on our sister site, Baltimore Beatdown. Ravens Week 15 rookie report, relatively quiet, all outings all around. That's one thing the Ravens need to start doing is drafting and developing receivers. They get a couple of they use high picks on them, and some of them end up making some plays and others kind of end up fizzling out here. But when you look at, Rashad Bateman, it breaks down his day. Odafe Owe, he got a flag in the game. Ben Cleveland, I know a lot of Bengals fans liked him, so go check that out to see how the rookies did, but not an overly outstanding day, it seems, by Ravens rookies in that game. And I know we all tried to keep a peripheral eye on that game with the Bengals one going on, but obviously the Bengals game was probably taking up the most of our attention. I mentioned this earlier. We'll get to there in a sec. let's go to the Steelers. Now the Steelers, man, oh man, they pulled one out of, I'll say it, their rear ends yesterday. I'll say it politely. They pulled one out of their rear ends against the Titans. Titans had them down, God, what was it, 13-3, I think, and then somehow the Steelers, who just keep emulating that Undertaker GIF where he rises out of the coffin. They just keep doing it, and they hang around and they hang around and they hang around. And for similar reasons wherein we should at least compliment a rival in the Ravens and their ability to hang around and weather the storm on injuries, everybody said that the Steelers were going to not be there at the end. They were going to fall away. The Bengals swept them convincingly, but here they are. They're there. Now, Steelers are 10-point underdogs against the Chiefs, who they face coming up here. And this is on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, another site in the SB Nation network that covers the Pittsburgh Steelers, much like Cincy Jungle. So they are 10-point underdogs against the Chiefs coming up here. Will be interesting to see after the Ravens game what the Bengals line will be against the Chiefs themselves, but not a lot of faith in the Steelers against the Chiefs there. And the Chiefs could deliver a knockout punch to the 7-6-1 Steelers. Depending on what happens with Cleveland later today, depending on what happens between Baltimore and Cincinnati, that could be a big knockout punch should the Steelers stumble, as they are predicted to, against the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is just an interesting, more kind of opinionated article. And then, it's from Jeff Hartman at Behind the Steel Curtain. At this point in the season, you have to question whether the Steelers' issues can be fixed. And this was as of this morning. Kind of an interesting one with the result yesterday. You kind of figured there'd be a little bit more of a positive vibe with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And there's not, at least amongst their fan base and those that cover the team. So now when we say fixed it, are the issues fixable? I don't know if they're really how far into the future they are talking, but go check out the article. Interesting stuff there from the Behind the Steel Curtain folks. Now, the Cleveland Browns getting set to kick off here, and they are hurting. And they are a team that is got a lot of people on the COVID list. The Browns have activated safety John Johnson III, and they elevate 7 from the practice squad here. Those activated from the practice squad as COVID-19 replacements: cornerback Brian Allen, Froholt, the guard, defensive end Joe Jackson. Activated from reserve COVID-19 was the safety John Johnson, as I mentioned. And then John Kelly, Herb Miller, Javante Moffitt, and Tedrick Thompson are all players activated from the practice squad as COVID-19 replacements. So they are making do with what they can, are the Cleveland Browns, as they get set to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. And who is starting at quarterback for the Cleveland Browns? Wouldn't you know, it's Nick Mullins. Case Keenum and Baker Mayfield both having COVID. They will not suit up here for the game against the Raiders. And Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, is also still in COVID protocols here. So that is, they're shorthanded. They have some embedded excuses there. The league gave them 2 more days to maybe get some negative tests and whatnot. They were not able to do that. So Mayfield and Case Keenum are on the COVID-19 list, and Nick Mullins is the quarterback. Now, Nick Mullins was he was a guy that he's played 19 regular season games. I think he was with the 49ers, I believe. Could be wrong about that, but starting 16 of 19 regular season games, 64.5% completion rate, 4,714 yards, 25 touchdowns, 22 interceptions. He was on the practice squad this year, on the Browns practice squad. So employment with 49ers. Got some experience and has some experience against the Raiders as well. So something to note there. I'm seeing some updates from some of you in here in terms of maybe some recent updates on Joe Mixon and or Joe Bocci. That is what we'll try and confirm that. Trying to look on Cincy Jungle and other places to see the injury report. I'm seeing Mixon could be out, 1 to 3 weeks from our friend Mike Holbrook there, and or kind of expected. Wanted to make sure it was confirmed. We're hearing that Bocci probably tore his ACL, could be done for the year, so we got to get a little bit more on that. But that's unfortunately some things that are coming out. We will, like I said, keep it confirming and have it on cincyjungle.com for all the breaking news on that front. Now, I mentioned this earlier. This was a scary moment yesterday. I'll talk about it briefly because Bridgewater left the game with a head injury. He was being evaluated for concussion at a local hospital, was carted off the field and put in an ambulance. Very scary moment, but he had feeling in extremities and all kinds of different stuff as he was leaving the stadium. And then reports are saying that he was doing better today and will be in the concussion protocol at this point. So that's something to note, something to keep an eye on with Teddy Bridgewater. Scary moment, but it sounds like he's doing better right now. Here is just some updates from on NFL.com in terms of injuries and COVID and all kinds of different stuff affecting rosters. Here it is as of Monday, December 20th. Brandon Scherf is now on the COVID list, and that was the Tuesday game is between Washington and the Eagles. And Scherf has tested positive for COVID, missed 4 games with a knee injury earlier. Matthew Ioannidis, Cam Sims, Daniel Wise, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. So those were guys that were activated from the list. They were removed from the list on Sunday, so they are back. And Sweat was actually from injured reserve. So that's kind of what's going on there. But here's all kinds of stuff. Lamar Jackson will practice Wednesday. We'll see what happens there as the Bengals face them. I mentioned the Browns. Here's more on the Teddy Bridgewater release from the hospital. So you can kind of see here, there's a lot of just kind of scrolling news and all kinds of different stuff here with the list here on NFL.com. So you can check out a lot of that stuff. Corey Linsley, Joey Bosa, Austin Eckler, all on the COVID-19 list. So Rams activated Bobby Evans and Troy Reeder off of the COVID-19 list. Jalen Waddle, Phillip Lindsay are being activated by the Dolphins off of the COVID-19 list. Will Fuller is done for the year with a finger injury. And Chris Godwin, and I'll share this as a standalone article here. Chris Godwin tore a knee ligament, and he is done for the year. A big, big loss for the Buccaneers. He is a valuable, valuable piece. It looks like the Buccaneers are getting back Antonio Brown and all kinds of different things, so maybe that'll help him. But he tore his ACL in the Sunday night loss against the Saints. He's done for the season. Unfortunately, a talented guy and a valuable guy for Tampa Bay is gone for the year. Now let's end things. We've done this a couple of times, a mock draft, a 22 mock draft. We've had the distinct pleasure of not needing to talk about mock drafts on our podcast at this point in the year. We're talking playoffs, we're talking scenarios, all kinds of different stuff. We are not talking about mock drafts, but there was one here that was put out by CBS Sports. And you can see here, Linderbaum here is a guy that a lot of Bengals fans would like as an interior offensive line addition. Kenyon Green's another one. He goes to Washington at pick 12. They've got the Steelers taking Kenny Pickett out of Pitt, the quarterback. So the Pittsburgh kid would stay home. Cleveland getting a linebacker. Ravens getting secondary help. And we've got where do we have the Bengals here? At pick 25. Jackson Kirkland, an offensive lineman, 6'7", 310 out of Washington. He was one of those guys that, is he tackle, is he guard at the next level? But that is something, and I think that might be an area, that or cornerback has to be an area where the Bengals look to adjust and add this year. But that is who they have the Bengals taking at pick number 25 right now on CBS Sports in the 22 mock draft. Check it out. All right. Long show, marathon show, but we got to a lot. Usually I like to split up the post game and the Happenin headlines, but just given the late nature of the game last night and all kinds of different stuff, decided to combine them again. We'll probably do a split off next week. And I'm going to also maybe start adding in a couple of contemporaries, colleagues to join me for some of the post-game stuff, potentially more in the Happenin headlines as well, just to kind of mix it up. But hopefully you guys are enjoying this stuff. If you do, give us a thumbs up on the YouTube channel. Leave a rating on the audio podcast, hopefully a good one. Give us some feedback and let us know how we're doing. You could subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there. You can click that little button down there and subscribe, as well as clicking the bell to be notified when we go live, when new content is available. You got to like the Cincy Jungle Facebook page. We stream live there and put up all of our articles there. And then, of course, go on your favorite audio streamer and subscribe to the Cincy Jungle podcast, whether that's Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any of the major ones. We are there. So check it out, subscribe, leave us a review. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. That's going to do it for today. We've got our other big show coming up Wednesday, fantasy football coming up later this week with our buddy, the Orange Arrow, giving you some tips as the fantasy football playoffs roll on and all kinds of different stuff. But thanks. Happy Monday to you. Happy holidays. If we don't talk to you before the two upcoming holidays coming up here, happy holidays to all you folks. And keep it to cincyjungle.com for all your news, opinions, analysis, all the good stuff. We'll treat you right and make sure we've got all the happenings there. Take care.